Chargers Hall of Fame was created in 1976 to honor the best of the best. We celebrate the remarkable career of a true trailblazer and one of the most beloved Chargers in team history, number 85, Antonio Gates.
What's y'all boys like about the fit? What's happening? Hey, we out here, dog. What's y'all boys like about the fit, man? What's up?
Gates, welcome to the Chargers Hall of Fame. Congratulations. What does it mean to you?
Wow, it means so many different things. Usually when you get to this level, you normally think about the people who helped you flourish to this point. And I think about where it all started from, where I gained my edge from my neighborhood and how I grew up, and just learning how to be mentally tough from growing up from Detroit, Michigan, and then getting to the point of going to college and learning how to make sacrifices for my teammates and sacrifices to get to the next level. And then obviously the Chargers and the organization and my teammates here, just so many people who've helped me along the way. And I think that's what it symbolized. Although it's my name, I'm going in, it was my way of saying thank you to all those people, and I think that's how I feel.
It's my honor and my privilege to announce tonight that you've been inducted into the Los Angeles Chargers Hall of Fame.
Thank you, man.
Thank you, David.
They didn't tell me that. Y'all got me. Y'all got me on that one.
You were so emotional when you got the news. Was it because you were thinking of all those people? How did it affect you so greatly?
Normally people can't see what's underneath the surface. And I guess as men, we bottle so much stuff up throughout our course of our journey. Finally, you get a chance to let it out when you finally arrive, and which is when you get into a space like this, when you finally be among some of the greats that's ever played this game for this franchise. Finally, you say, wow, those days of working hard each and every day and trying to prove to my teammates, prove to my coaches, prove to my people that I deserve to be here. More importantly, I deserve to be one of the best players in the game. So I think it just comes out the way it comes out, and it's just all genuine. I think I never expected that in a million years to get blindsided by me going into the Hall of Fame here for this franchise.
So we'll talk about the impending Pro Football Hall of Fame semifinalist announcement in a moment, but I want to just kind of go back and talk about your career. Obviously, the Elite Eight, Kent State, all of that, you decide to try the NFL thing, didn't play a lick of college football, as we know. This was an era with no social media, no hype machines that we're dealing with. How did you get their attention?
Well, I think what happened is that it was a coach called Tim Brewster, who was the tight end coach at the time. It was a combination of things. Obviously, those NFL scouts, when they see a guy, I was 260, running around on the court, right? Everything is about fit. So it seems to be fitting as a tight end, outside linebacker, a guy that can move around at that size. I know Nick Saban had, brought my name up to some scouts in terms of who he thought was one of the better players in the draft. Always was great at moving lateral for my size because of the game of basketball. And I just remember the scouts coming to see me, and that's what they talked about the most. My ability to move laterally, my ability to hand-eye coordination. But it still wasn't registering at the time. I just thought you had to be this strong physical specimen to play in the National Football League. Didn't know that you had to have this skill set from a standpoint of being able to move speed. So that was the first thing I noticed when I got to training camp, is that how fast, how athletic these guys were. But it ended up working out for me.
Yeah. Why were the Chargers the right fit for you at the time? Because you got, as an undrafted free agent, you could pick anywhere.
With the connection with the coach, the tight end coach, who would always come in and see me, and he was adamant about what he liked about me. He was adamant about my skill set, adamant about my size, adamant about my weight, adamant about my speed. But yet I was able to see the roster and say to myself, well, I don't know none of these dudes on this roster. Little did I know, I got up here, and I remember like a week in the training camp, I remember calling home to my head coach, and I was like, dude, these dudes better than I thought. You know what I'm saying? These dudes are really good. They good. So we kind of looked at the roster to determine this is probably an easier team to make. But when we got here, they were so good. Josh Norman, Justin Peels, Steve Alexander. We had a guy named Ryan Krause. These dudes were good. Unfortunately, I was still able to make the team.
Yeah. So I read an article with Drew Brees in 2005, and he was talking about you, and he said, I'm not even sure Antonio knows how good he can actually be. When did the football thing really start to click for you?
I think when I started having injuries, you know, because I was so used to using my God-given ability, just line me up one-on-one, and it had a lot of basketball feel to it, because all I wanted to do is give you a misdirection, and so it felt easy.
End zone's got Gates, touchdown, San Diego, as he stepped around.
But once I had the injury and started accumulating injuries, then I knew I had to start taking my game to the next level. And unfortunately, you have to have things like that happen to you for you to really start to dig deep in terms of what you want to do and where you want to go. And so at that point, I had already made a significant impact to the National Football League based on I had broke the NFL touchdown record for a single season, and I just felt like I wanted to keep going. So it forced me to learn about the game, and I felt like I owed it to my teammates. I always felt like, because I played the tight end position, so throwing me the ball all the time, you know, I know receivers don't really get along with that too much. So I felt like I needed to take my game consistently on the next level and keep improving, and that was my next step. You know, learning coverages, learning how to read certain situations, learning what they were trying to do to me. Those are the things that was taking me to the next level. Unlike most guys that come into the National Football League, they've already experienced those things, but I was doing it for the first time. Unlike guys that come from these big programs, they've had accumulative times of meeting time and playing football all their life. So that's why I felt like, you know, the degree of difficulty for me is like probably no other player that ever played in this league.
There are players who are lucky to get to play with a Hall of Fame quarterback. You've essentially had two. What has it been like? Maybe three, yeah.
A little pitch back to LT. He's looking to throw towards the end zone. Gates, got it! Touchdown!
Oh, that would be LT's 6th career touchdown pass.
To work with Brees, to work with Rivers, how special were they in helping guide you along too?
Well, you know, Drew, obviously we had a short stay, and I had my best years with Drew Brees. And I think to see him work hard consistently in his circumstance gave us a sense of respect for him. Mm-hmm. Because I don't know if you remember, at one point they used to boo Drew coming out of Qualcomm Stadium before we drafted Phillip. And what we would notice on film is that some things were not his fault. A guy might have ran the wrong route, a lineman might have missed the protection, and his natural ability is that he was trying to make something happen. And for him to still compete and flourish the way he was able to do with all those things transpiring, I have nothing but the utmost respect for Drew Brees. He's one of my favorite people that I've met, you know, throughout my career with the Chargers. Pertaining to Phillip, what we have is just self-explanatory. You know, it's just a connection. It was just written before he even played. You know, his locker was next to mine before he even took a snap. And I just remember our first game, and we ran the ball so many times, and I was just so mad. And he threw me a touchdown at the end of the game.
Rivers back to throw, looking, end zone, firing, touchdown, Antonio Gates.
He was so happy. And I just looked at him like, dude, I only got one catch. Are you crazy? What's wrong with you? But he was so adamant, and he loved to win. Mm-hmm. And that spirit carried throughout his tenure here with the Chargers. And I stood next to him every step of the way. And to be honest with you, I wouldn't change nothing in the world. That's my guy right there.
Yeah. For you guys, I remember having conversations with Nick Hardwick, and those mid-2000s, early 2000s Chargers teams were so good, and he said a lot of it was because so many of you came in at the exact same time. You were going through life together at the exact same time. You were getting married, having kids, just growing up. How did that bode for the camaraderie on those teams?
Well, we're going through the trial and error together too. I think that's the formula to a successful team over time. When you go through the bumps and bruises, when you go through the things that we were going through, right? The heartbreaking losses, right? And yet we were staying together. And one thing about those teams, we didn't have no prima donnas. We didn't have guys missing, practice. We didn't have guys missing off-season workouts. Everybody was in the conditioning test. Everybody was training. Everybody was trying to get better because we wasn't winning. Right? It's like, yeah, you have to come with your A game.
Yeah.
Because guys are coming for your spot, and we're trying to figure out who is the nucleus of this organization so we can get to the next level. And when you think about the Nick Harweys, the Chris Gilmans, the Marcus McNeils, and even the veteran golfs, and all the way back to the Jamals, dude, we competed at a level where it felt like an all-star game every practice. I mean, I'm going against Sean Merriman, I gotta go against Weddle, I might be in slot, I gotta go against Jammer or Cromartie, you know, maybe Donnie Edwards, LT, Lorenzo Neal was in the back, right? Igor Shansky is going against this one, Luis Castillo, Sean Phil. Like we had Stephen Cooper, and all the way, I can go on and on and on with so many names, but it was like steel sharpening steel. You know, we wanted to be the best. Those are like significant people that's played a role, but more importantly, they don't even know. They inspired me.
Favorite Chargers game?
I think one of my favorite ones, and I don't know if, I can't quote me on the year, is when we were on the plane and we needed Denver to lose week 15 or week 16 in order for us to have opportunity to beat them and win the division. Denver lost, and that plane ride on the way back, you would have thought we've already made it. You thought we've already made advanced.
Needed them to lose.
We just needed them to lose. When they lost, we had already knew it was no way that they were going to come into San Diego at the time and beat us to go to the playoffs.
And that's the way it's going to end, with San Diego throwing up 52 points.
We already knew it. We were going crazy. We were so happy. We went there and blew them out. And I think collectively, whiteout game against Seattle, Legion of Boom came
white
in
hot
here.
Sunday.
Field temperatures almost 120 degrees.
And they were just talking about how good this defense was. And we were like, look, we the Chargers. We the Superchargers, right? We lit them up. We tore them up.
Rivers throws. And is it a touchdown? It is a touchdown by Antonio Gates.
We had so many good games like that. And I got countless of games that comes to mind, but those are the ones that stand out right away.
So we've been together a long time. I've known you since I started in 2014, and I was going back through some of the interviews that I had done with you in articles, and you had told me one time, it's one thing to be on a team, it's another when you're trying to be the pinnacle of what you do. You are a semifinalist for the Pro Football Hall of Fame class of 2024. To get that moment, to hear that, what was your reaction to that news?
To be honest with you, I'm wrapping my head around it all.
Still?
You know, since I stepped foot here in California, I always had a standard that I wanted to set for myself, not for nobody, for myself. And every year I would find a niche to improve myself. And I never looked too far ahead, and I never looked too far back. I just stayed on course. I just said, hey, as long as you get better every single year, do the best you can that year, and you keep moving on. You find a niche another year, and I would come back. When I got older, they kept saying I was too old. When you tally up all those years, when you tally up all those opportunities that I had, it leads me to be in this position right here, because I didn't take those opportunities for granted, and I didn't dwell on them either. I didn't dwell on the big years that I had. You know, I didn't dwell on the big games that I had. I went to the next game and said, hey, now be your best. Then I went to the next game, I said, now be your best. Then boom, I finished year 5. I said, okay, now you gotta start all over in year 6. Be your best this game. Building blocks and building blocks and building blocks. And then you look up and they say, you know what? You up for the Hall of Fame, man. You got a chance of being one. And I'm like, I knew staying on course is usually the reason why these things exist and these things happen.
You mentioned at the top of this interview how your upbringing shaped you a lot. What would the kid from Detroit say about everything you've accomplished?
We had it all. I mean, just the overcome the things that I've been able to overcome, to overcome the adversity, to overcome poverty, to overcome gang violence, to overcome, you know, so many things that I had to overcome. I think it's the standard, you know what I'm saying? It's the standard of what you would want a kid from Detroit to look to and say, hey, he's made it, you can do it. So there you go.
Not bad for a basketball player.
I know, right?
Congrats,
At all.
Gates.
Thank you so much.